Welcome to the Omnigamers Club podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including metagames that you can play at a convention in and around other events, if I get that the right way up. But more on that later. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark Uasa.
Hi, Mark. We're trying something a little new today. Just experimenting with a new format, and what better excuse to talk about our local board game convention together, which was last weekend, Terminal City Tabletop Convention. We both attended last weekend and wanted to talk a bit about our experience. And so we wanted to try to use it as an excuse to try something a little different. We've been talking about doing some video content for a while. Actual live streams have been a little hard to schedule. It's been a while since we've done those, but we'll ease ourselves in with this and see where it goes.
Yeah, it was cool to meet a couple of listeners at the show at TCTC.
Yes, yeah. So shall we get to the convention?
Let's dive into it.
Yeah. So Terminal City Tabletop Convention. This is the local Vancouver board game convention. It's been going for 10 years as of this. Well, I guess this is the 11th year because it started in 2014. But this is the 10-year anniversary, I guess. But minus several years from the convention, mind you. So I think I first attended in 2015. When was your first year, Mark?
I think mine was, maybe I did one, an odd one off a few years back, but I've been going regularly for the past 3 years.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, it started up around the time that I first moved to Canada, and that was trying to find new board gaming friends. Right, I didn't know anyone when I moved here, and it was one of the first time I knew no one when I first went to my first convention, and now it feels like I know half the people there. So it's been a great learning experience. And yeah, the local community has always been very friendly and accepting. So very cool. And so it's been through several venues. I think this is the 6th venue that it's been at in this time, including virtual. And this year was the first year we were at the Vancouver Convention Center, which is a big jump. The same place as Shucks was hosted at previously, and hopefully comes back some year soon. But that was fun being there. So full disclosure, I have been involved in helping organize the convention. This is my second year I've been running the registration, so I'm not financially invested at all, just emotionally invested in seeing this community grow. I've really enjoyed sort of giving back to the local community after I've gotten so much out of it myself.
Yeah, I definitely have been able to attend at the 3 venues in my recollection. I think the Croatian Cultural Center was on Commercial Drive. For one, that was my first one, and then last was at the Roundhouse in Yaletown, closer to downtown Vancouver, and then the most recent one was at the Canada Place, the convention center there. And you're absolutely right; it was a huge upgrade. Really nice to be up there, with the big boys, like Shucks. And I think everyone I spoke to was very, very pleased with the transition into the new space.
Yeah, I will also say I really liked the previous venue at the Roundhouse. This is literally an old train roundhouse that's been converted into a community center, and it had like very rustic vibes. You had the literal train roundhouse on the outside. It's great atmosphere if you're playing some 18xx games or some Ticket to Ride, obviously. There's an old steam train housed in one of the rooms there, so that was really fun. But space was just the main issue, right? And the convention's been a bit of a victim of its own success. We keep selling out of tickets, and so we need more space. And the only place to go is the convention center. Oh, and we have Ted here to join us too. Hello.
Hi, Ted.
Yeah. So that provided a lot more flexibility at the convention center, and I think everyone was a lot more comfortable. And I think we're going to be staying there for the next little while. So I was pretty busy at the convention, I will say. Actually, volunteering all weekend. I did have time to play a few lighter games and have a wander around and chat to some people. Didn't get to play a whole lot though, so I'm very curious to hear your perspective on that as an attendee. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Not only was it new to move into the new space, but for the very first time, I did almost exclusively the RPG track. So the con offers RPG rooms in the past. This time it was a big old corner of the convention floor dedicated to, I think it was up to 10 RPG tables at a given time. And I scheduled 6 or 7 sessions, and I ended up doing 5 of them. So I'm pretty pleased with myself that I was able to fit in 5 brand new to me RPG systems in the matter of 2.5 days.
Yeah,
so that's most of my experience.
Yeah,
that was my goal.
We had a couple of very committed RPG managers running that room who were able to bring in a lot of local GMs, and they were having to, again, they were so overrun with people wanting to run a bunch of stuff. And I know they were trying to make a big effort to have a diverse range of games that weren't just Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I think, I've of all the games I've heard talked about over the weekend, I didn't hear one mention of that game. So I think that was a success.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to probably be talking mostly about RPGs, but I did manage to attend at least one session at the Proto Alley. So the con has always had has had a Proto Alley section as far as I know. And that's an area where game designers, some published, some amateur, can showcase their fresh games before they're published, or maybe even they're just in their really early stages. I was able to test out a game by a designer who I know from the local game design space, and it was great to see the progress that he had made on his game. And I know there was a bunch of other people we knew there. Jay Cormier was there. Showing off what is this new game called?
Core of Discovery? Corpse?
Yeah,
it's Core. Is that right?
Core of Discovery. Yeah, CORPS.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was great to see him. First Fish Games, of course, who we've covered before. Also, I got to know through game design and game testing days, was showing off Mistwind as opposed to Mythwind. And our friends at Hot Banana Game, who we had on our show a couple episodes ago, were showcasing their new game Moon Bunny. So lots of familiar faces, lots of new faces. I think we'll cover it later, but one of the games I tried out at one of the tables was being shown at the Proto Alley, and I was able to thank the designer. He threw me some stickers, so that was really nice too.
Excellent. Yeah, Proto Alley's always been one of my favorite parts of TCTC. It's been there since the beginning, basically. Even when it was like a couple hundred people, there were people showing off their designs. I think the first time I went, I think First Fish Games were there with I think it was their first game. Was it Get Off My Land? I think it was called.
Right.
One of their first games. That was like nearly 10 years ago. And Vancouver has a really strong design scene, and everyone knows each other, right? And then supporting each other, and great to see that thriving. So, where do we want to start? Do we want to talk about RPGs or Proto Alley?
Let's start with the Proto Alley because, ironically, I don't know if you had any part in that, but it was the very first thing you run into after the registration desks coming into the con.
Well, that was one of the great things about the convention center. We had the flexibility of layout that could actually funnel people through those parts of the con, right? And that I should say that was being run by Stephanie from First Fish Games. She was managing the Proto Alley and wrangling everyone together. And I think we had like 15 tables. Really large number of people from around Vancouver, elsewhere in BC, a couple from Washington, even a pretty diverse range of like the levels of development and known names and newcomers alike. So
first off, I'll talk about Winter Palace, which this was my first time trying out, but I know that Kennedy and December had been working on this for a while. As I understand it, Kennedy is a big fan of those big kind of con social games, like what are they? I think like
Blood on the Clock Tower is like
Blood on the Clock Tower is the big one. Right. Now that's an area I feel like I don't really know a lot about. Yeah. I haven't had a lot of firsthand experience, and social deduction games aren't really my thing. I played a bunch, obviously, like the classic ones, like Secret Hitler, or what are the other ones, like
Resistance,
Mafia, Resistance. Coup, Werewolf. Yeah. So obviously those are out there. I played all of those before, but not the big scale ones. I feel like they're like a somewhat newer aspect to it. And Winter Palace is Kennedy and December's stab at that genre. And the basic idea is it's kind of like what is it, 18th century like Crystal Palace kind of thing. I don't think that's literally what it is, but
Like a
that's the
Regency
theming of
ball.
it. Yeah, that's right. And the idea is that there's a masked ball, and then there's like 3, I guess, dances. So 3 rounds. You have the first dance where you talk to a fixed number of people. I think it might have been 7 people. And then the second dance, and you talk to, you have to mingle around, essentially, is that's the theme, and it works thematically. That's the mechanic, and it works thematically. And you have to meet 6 people. And then the final one, I think you have to meet 5 people. And while you're meeting them, dancing with them, you have to exchange a good for a good. So you're carrying a number of goods which are unique to you. Examples might be, like a warrant for arrest, a love letter, a regular letter, a secret. I think there was like coal, like a
Were
lump
these
of
like
coal, I suppose.
preset or randomized?
They're preset per character. So
Okay.
each character, each unique named character, and I believe it's all unique characters. Unlike Werewolf or something, there aren't like 7 villagers, or Bang, there aren't, multiple bandits. Everyone is unique, and everyone's kind of seeking unique things and wanting to get rid of unique, and they hold unique things.
So,
So
I'm guessing that the roles are secret, right? That's the idea.
the roles are open, but you don't know who has the roles. So
I see.
I think you have to, I don't know, if you want to be successful, quote unquote, at the game, you have to know what the roles are. You have to know what
items
seek,
those roles have. Yeah.
and have to know what they have, because it's deduction, right? So you have to trade something. You can only dance with unique people, as in you can't dance with the same person twice within one round. And ultimately, you're trying to exchange stuff. And then at the end of the 3 rounds, you calculate what items you ended up receiving. And if you have the right items, you win. And if you have the wrong items, you lose. And I think there's other special cases where if you like avoid getting something, or if this other character, something happened to them, you succeed. It's all very thematic and whatnot. They straight up told us, Kennedy told me that they are planning to switch this into an app-driven game.
Yeah, so I heard. Yeah,
and that we did it with like these sort of popsicle stick things. So we were given a container. It had a smaller container within, kind of like I don't know if you had a UNICEF Halloween box when you were a child in the trick-or-treating, but it's just like a little box with a small opening and enough to drop, a coin-sized object, in this case, a popsicle stick. And that's where you hide the item. And what people give you is secret. You can tell them what you want, and they can tell you what they're giving you, but what they're giving you is secret because they just surreptitiously slot it into that.
And you
box.
can't look at the items in your box?
You cannot look at the items in your box until the end of the game.
Okay.
Right. So it was very kind of chaotic. Obviously, the theme is sort of mingling about and intrigue and whatnot. And I'm interested to see how it kind of converts into the digital format. Like they said as much, the designers said that it's tricky, it's confusing, it's difficult just logistically trading those objects, tracking those objects. And like, I'm sure I thought I dropped my popsicle sticks like 5 or 6 different times on the ground.
Do you think that would help stream like that, or would it just end up with people walking around looking at their phone? Like, how do you think that would improve?
I think people will end up looking at their phones, but it has the advantage of, like, it was hard to even remember who you had danced with. Like, we only played with a dozen people, so you have to meet them multiple times,
especially playing with strangers at a convention, right?
That's right. So if I met with stranger A previous in the dance, and the first dance, on the second dance, I remember I danced with
before,
person A, but did I dance with you this round or not? I forget. And every single round, I ended up giving I ended up giving away too many things.
It's a lot of information to track. Right.
It is a lot of information. You literally had handfuls of stuff to deal with. So I think there's some wrinkles in there. I'm gonna give some feedback. I haven't yet. I'm gonna give some feedback on their website, but they're trying their darndest, and good luck to them. So that's Hobbyists or Dabblers Games. That's their company name. December and Kennedy Goodkey, and the game is Winter Palace.
Yeah, I had a friend who played a round of this too and had some similar thoughts on it, feeling very chaotic, right? And I got the impression that this is a social deduction game for people who've played a lot of those games, and it's sort of a step up in complexity. I mean, I'm also just not a fan of those games. Too much social anxiety, especially with strangers. So not necessarily for me, but those games are very popular. We had a table dedicated to Blood on the Clock Tower that was just running non-stop during the convention, and people are going to be looking for variations on that.
Anyways, how about games you play?
Yeah, I mean, well, my rundown's going to be a little briefer. So I didn't really have time to sit down and like play a session of these games, but I made sure to sit down with most of the tables and at least get a demo and a general idea of what they were about. I was running registration for most of the weekend, and my brain was too addled, and I couldn't really sit down and commit the time without distractions and people having ticket questions. But let me just start with where did I start? It was with Living Buildings by Dan Scarcelli. So this is a fellow out on Vancouver Island, I believe. And it was interesting talking to him in that he didn't really seem to have ambitions of like publishing this game. This is just something he's working in on his own time and like without having to be necessarily a product or have any big goals of kickstarting, like which seems so obligatory these days. But it's a passion project, right? And that's great to see. So this is a theme around building sustainable buildings. So you're building these sort of multi-level high rises, drafting cards to add to these buildings, having various residents who have various wants and needs, and also various types of waste that you're trying to manage. And it's one of a increasing popular theme about sustainability, which I'm like Daybreak is a big hit right now, and so I'm very interested in games playing with that theme. One of probably the most interesting part I saw is that you're sort of taking track of your waste output and your sustainability each round, and you basically end up with a little graph. Like you literally have a little paper printout, and you're charting your sustainability over the course of the game, and you end up with this really neat looking bar graph of how sustainable your buildings are. And I thought that was a really novel idea. Again, I didn't actually play this game, but it had a really nice art style, cool theme, and yeah, curious to see how that develops.
Yeah, I like games that have a little artifact that you can take away at the end of the game. Like, a lot of roll and writes have that when you fill in all the boxes, like cartographers. That's always fun to see. I'm going to do a quick talk about another game that I ended up picking up from one of the demoers at Proto Alley. Gather Your Party, it's called. It's a light
Gravy
game.
Boat Games, I think, was the publisher.
Gravy Boat Games is correct. Yes, I'm not sure the name of the designer. I wish I have the box upstairs. So the game is very light. It's intended to be a social kind of chips and beer sort of game.
Definitely a drinking game. In theme,
a drinking game or a light-hearted game. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing raunchy about this. It sort of has the very kind of random outcomes, take that sort of stuff that a lot of games that my children enjoy. So I actually bought that sort of as a gift for the family, for my eldest kid, who is a big fan of, what is that game? Exploding Kittens.
Yeah.
So it felt a lot like, not copying the mechanisms or anything like that, but within that sort of weight and length of game.
A lot of randomness and just events are happening and cards are getting passed and stealing things. And I felt like there was very little agency in the game. I'm sure there's absolutely a market for it in terms of party games and just having something to do while you're having a drink. And
yeah, I think I didn't buy it because it was a deep strategy game. I don't think there's a way to get good at this game and definitively win all the time. The premise is just that you want to collect a party of heroes, thus gather your party. So you want to collect certain types of of heroes, of adventurers, and basically be able to turn them in to fulfill these sort of party requests before someone sabotages you from doing the same.
And they
So it's
will.
a lot of take that. It's a lot
Mm.
of like blind chance, a lot of your shifting of hands and things like that, and stealing of tokens. And there are these negative tokens called I guess drink tokens, or so you can't collect any more drink tokens once you've reached your limit. You're too drunk or something like that. So,
Yeah, the theme
it's
didn't
cute.
really come across. It was a vague sense of you're in a tavern drinking with heroes, but I didn't quite follow how it all came together.
Yeah, I thought that actually the theme was fine. I just imagine people sitting around a poker table, eating chips, drinking beer, and passing little acrylic tokens next, just chaotically around the table. So a light game, and I haven't showed it to the kids yet, but I'm pretty sure that they'll enjoy it.
Yep. No, it's certainly accessible little party game.
Yeah, that was Gather Your Party.
Excellent. Well, let me look. What did I have next? Quick look at Firestarter Games. They're, I think his name is Sebastian. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name here. Sebastian Bernier Wong. That's it. From up Campbell River way up north, I believe. So he was showing off a few games. One was called Reforest, which I backed on Kickstarter last year after seeing it at last TCTC. Again, so I haven't had a chance to actually play it, but it was still great to sit down and just get a sense of what it's about. So you have a bunch of cards that are representing trees and animals, and you're basically building a little tableau engine there, right? There was some cool puzzles about layering cards. Like each card has different light requirements, so you could layer a tree on top of a sort of low level shrub, but if you cancel out the light levels, then you'll kill off the card below. And so he's trying to sort of synergize the different requirements of the different flora and fauna. Again, didn't have a great chance to look at it, but like a lot of unique cards, cool theme. It was very sort of encyclopedic aesthetic, similar to like Wingspan, basically, sort of very clean white cards with encyclopedic illustrations. Looking forward to that. There's another game he was showing off called Downstream, which I think is out of print, but he's working on a Kickstarter to
I own
bring that back.
I own Downstream.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was a 2-player game where you're laying cards into it's like almost like a lane battler, I guess, right? You're laying cards into a central river, literally a river, where there's symbols on either side of this river. But the way you're lining up the river is sort of angles in fun ways, and it's just a very aesthetically pleasing way, even though if it sort of meanders along the table in a way that doesn't necessarily. It doesn't have a mechanical influence, but it just looks really cool. It looks like an actual river meandering across the table.
It does. I think it does have a mechanical input. Well, basically, I bought this last TCTC from the designer, and the reason why I bought it is because I playtested this game at Vancouver Playtest Group when it was in a prototype form. So that's another reason why I bought it, because I thought it was solid even then. And the rough long and short of it is that the river meanders, and it only goes in one direction, thus downstream. It starts from a source and it goes down to the other way. But depending on how the river undulates, the river can go more towards your side.
You're trying to pull it to your side of the table. Interesting.
Yeah, or more towards the opponent's side.
And you're matching symbols on either side of the river too. So yeah.
Right, there's symbols on the other side. So you have to balance whether you want to let it drift more towards your opponent, or if you want the point, the icon advantage that's going to be on your side of the stream or not. So the stream will always be sort of neutral, or lean in one direction or lean in the other direction. So it's actually really clever.
Yeah, no, I didn't play it, but it had a really interesting looking table presence for a very small card game. And he's working on a new expansion to add a canoe to go down the river. So
there you go. Yeah,
watch out for that.
I'll bring it to our next game session.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I can run through a couple more. Again, fairly brief, but I'll talk about Moon Bunny very quickly. It was very hard to grab a demo of that, but I did eventually. So this is latest game from Hot Banana, who we had on a recent episode of the podcast, designers of Steam Up. And they had a little meta game they were giving out as a reference at the start of the episode, where they were giving out these little sets of dim sum cards. Okay, here's 5 cards that all have chicken feet on them. And so the idea was to go around the convention, finding other people with the cards and trading them. So you ended up with the full set of 5 different dim sum. And if you could take that back to the booth, they'd give you a little coaster, which was cute. And so yeah, it was a fun little meta game to play and chat to people around the con. But I did have a chance to look at Moon Bunny, their latest game. So this is a tile laying game. It's sort of drafting tiles from the central tableau. But there was a really interesting mechanic where like most of the tiles had ingredients on them, but on the back there were these scoring conditions. And some of the tiles we randomly flipped over to scoring conditions, and they're all like a wild, huge range of different scoring conditions that you can potentially get, but it's going to be different every game, obviously. But you're drafting these tiles and putting them into a tableau, trying to find a balance between the ingredients and the scoring conditions that will use those ingredients for points. And laying them into like what like one of them might be you want ginseng in a row, or you want 5 different ingredients in a row, or things like that. And fairly basic scoring conditions, but layering multiple on top of each other in the most efficient way. But the way you draft these tiles are quite interesting. You have these moon bunnies that you're moving around this tableau, and like one of them moves like a rook in chess, like any number of spaces up or down or across, and the other one moved like a knight in chess, or it could move 3 spaces in any direction, I think, and it could move, it could change directions as it goes, and so you were balanced. It was a slight sense of having to plan ahead a little bit if you wanted to reach a tile on the other side of the board, for example, and setting up the 2 different bunnies in optimal positions. So again, didn't get to play it, but some really cool concepts. I love tile laying and sort of overlapping scoring conditions and trying to fit them together. It's a cool concept and a cool theme. So looking forward to more development on that. It's Moon Bunny. One other one I did look at was Epilogue by Violet Daisy Games, designed by Emma Larkins, who did Abandon All Artichokes. And again, disclosure: I'm friendly with all the people who are running the booth there, Anna Maria and Joe and Amanda Panda. But it was great to see their game they've got coming up. So they're at to launch a Kickstarter literally, I think, this coming week or maybe a couple of weeks. That's an RPG supplements. Like it's prompts for like starting an RPG session. It's called You Don't Meet in a Tavern. I think it's like different starting prompts for how to start an RPG without it having to be in a tavern, right? And this works on the other end of the spectrum. This is called Epilogue, and this is kind of a little story prompt about how your adventuring party came to a gnarly end. And you've got these cards that have, I should have brought a sample down, but they've got basically parts of words spread across them. So they might have a couple of letters on one side and a couple of letters on this side, and you're basically layering these cards over each other to create words. And a bit of like an improv collaborative storytelling session. Like you'll play a card, create a word, and then sort of start a story using that word about what happened to your group, and then pass it on to another player who has to sort of yes and that and play a card onto the tableau to continue that story, right? All with the sense of like what happened to your party. How did you all die gruesome deaths? Like I said, I'm not necessarily my type of game. I really struggle with like improvised storytelling. That's like my least favorite part of role playing generally. But like the words did help provide sort of little prompts, little image, like nice little illustrations and images there that could help sort of guide you along. And it did create this really cool tableau at the end of all of your all the cards and the words you'd created together. And again, the theme is a little strange in that like all these words that you're playing out, nothing is inherently about death. Like you just have to sort of, that's just the framework around the whole thing. But you could easily just use these cards for some other storytelling prompts, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be framed like that. That's the primary idea of the game, though. But yeah, cool little storytelling engine.
Very nice. Nice. All right. Should we roll into games we played or RPGs?
Yeah, tell us all about this RPG room.
Yeah, let me give you the rundown. I took notes, and I mentioned that I love artifacts out of games. I had character sheets, which are a great takeaway from any game. So I was very pleased that I got a little artifact, and I have my notes that I took down as well. So
I'm curious before we start out, how
Yeah.
how much information for each session did you have going in? Like, were you required to do like research and setup and character creation going into this?
Only one of the people sent out any supplementary information.
Mhm.
One of the GMs sent an email out, which I don't know if I received, or maybe I was lazy and I wasn't checking it out. But for all of the games, I brought nothing other than a piece of paper and some dice. And the GMs within to a T, all of them also brought their own dice. They brought pre-gens, so you didn't have to bring any characters in. I think in the case of the game where the GM sent out emails, I think there were just a large number of pre-gens, so they wanted to give the players a choice in advance, which is nice, right? But no, there was no expectation, I don't believe, for anyone to know or have played the games before. And that worked well for me because I was trying out 4.5 new-ish to me games, which was my goal from the outset. So let me just list off the names, and then I'll say a few words about each. So I played 2 games on the first day. Vaesen from Free League Games, Wild Sea, which was featured, I think maybe, I don't know if it was on Shut Up and Sit Down, or if it was on
Quinn's Quest. I think it was the first episode of his new series was all about that. Yeah,
right. So Wild Sea is very much enjoyed by Quinn's. A very cool system. Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is kind of like a bit of a darling right now. It's supposedly a more old school approach to RPGs with fun twists there. Earth Dawn 4th edition, which was the only game I'd played before. And I had played Earth Dawn 1st edition way back in the 90s. It's one of my all-time favorite RPGs, but I just haven't had a chance to play it because nobody knows what this game is. And the very last game I played, the 5th game I played on the last day, was the Mongoose edition of Traveler. So this is the 2022 edition, and it was my first time playing Traveler as well. So Vaesen was GM'd by Nathan L. Lovely guy. Very, very, very pleasant. And to a T, all of the GMs were super welcoming, friendly, attentive, understanding, patient.
You love to see
superlatives.
it. Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, I had a great experience at all my sessions.
That's great to hear.
So kudos to TCTC, to the organizers, but most especially to the GMs, and of course the fellow players I was playing with.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it took a lot of work from all of them to prep this, like for a group of strangers, right? And be able to teach games on the fly within a short window.
Absolutely, and I think the smart GMs just did repeats, so they did the same. They did the same one shot on each of the days, each of the 3 days, which is smart. But some of the GMs actually did a different session each day and strung it along like a mini campaign.
Oh, fun!
So that was kind of cool as well to learn. So Vaesen, it was the adventure was called The Hound of Blackburn Manor. I think normally Vaesen is set in sort of 18th century Scandinavia, if I'm not mistaken. But the GM had transported the setting to England.
There is a expansion. I don't know, an extra module, an official setting for UK.
Yeah, and sometimes games do that. Like I think other Free League games, like Tales from the Loop, has like a European setting.
Mythic Britain and Ireland. There you go.
Right. So Tales from the Loop also has a European setting, and then it has like a Midwest American setting. Also, it's supposed to sort of mirror the same vibes. So this one was set in the UK. It was set up more like a murder mystery, not a murder
Mm.
mystery. It was like a mystery.
Mhm.
So we were agents from something called the Society or the Sanctuary or something like that, like a secret society,
It's a little bit
basically.
like sort of Hellboy BRPG without the sort of high tech levels, I guess.
Yeah, or even like 18th century Ghostbusters,
Arkham
right? Like,
Horror or something. Yeah.
yeah. So we
Okay.
were all very disparate characters with disparate backgrounds. We actually got to do a little bit of character tweaking.
Mhm.
So he gave us the pre-gens, but he encouraged us all to establish what our relationships were to each other. So I think that was a great compromise. It gave us a little bit of more, I guess, like it was an icebreaker, right?
Mm.
I didn't know any of these people. A couple of the people at the table knew each other, but because we had to relate to our neighbors at the table, he basically created sort of narrative hook for all of us to know each other and for all of us to show off our unique abilities. So I think there was like a writer. I was like a retired university like literature professor. There was like a retired military officer, and then there was a kind of like a huckster huckster occultist medium sort of thing. So a range of characters were basically called to this mysterious manor to uncover a curse. And basically, like, we succeeded in the mission if we determined what kind of Vaesen or what kind of, quote unquote fae, what kind of curse was affecting the manor. And we plumbed our knowledge and found the right cure for the right Vaesen, right? So it's kind of like I guess The Witcher.
Or like
They're called in to take care of a
Phasmophobia was a
problem.
recent game. Like you trying to tell me like what type of ghost you've got and
Sure.
how to solve it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to bring the right solution for the right
Mm.
problem.
A little bit of
So that was ultimately it.
deter deduction. That's the word.
Yeah,
Deduction. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. So for the most of it, it felt very easy to roll into because it was a typical kind of who done it or
Mm.
investigate the characters at the manor, find out what their alibis were. So that part of it was very familiar, but there were definitely some like off the wall kind of spooky things, and we were bringing our own little quirks, being all disparate characters from disparate backgrounds. So all in all, I think it was a super success. I felt like maybe Nathan had a little bit of pressure to kind of wrap it up in the time frame that was
Mm.
allowed. We only had about 4 hours for the session, right? So some of the sessions ended up wrapping earlier, some of them went all the way up to the 4 hours, but that one wrapped up with a satisfactory end, and everyone had a good time.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm very curious about that. As I've been showing off, I have the books. I've started reading through them. I don't know that I'm up to GMing it, but I'd really like to work through a series of sessions that to try sometime. And
Yeah, mechanically it seemed very solid. I think it's utilizing the free league system, and as I recall, it's just like D6s. So I have the character sheet right here. Not that it really matters, but basically, there's like 4 stats, and each of them is just like a number from whatever 2 to 5 or whatnot, and you just add them to your skill number, and that adds to the target you're trying to hit. So it's very streamlined, and mechanically it didn't seem difficult at all.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love the artwork and the themes that it's playing with. It's a horror is obviously hard to nail in tone. You have to have the right group who's sort of leaning into that side of things, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially hard with strangers, right? But
Yeah.
yeah.
This one felt like the spoiler alert, maybe the least weird. Like it was just a little weird, weird in the sense that, spooky 18th century stories
Weird with a
are
Y.
somewhat familiar to us, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Speaking of weird, let me roll into the next RPG, Wild Sea. So Wild Sea was maybe the most weird. It definitely off the wall. Like, let me just show you how weird. My character's name is Z Katerio, a slinger, and my character is a colony of spiders wrapped up in this meat sack of skin and fabric. And I just picked her because them because they have 4 guns in 4 of their hands. And I just thought that was super cool. So this one,
8 hands.
Right. That would be more appropriate. Maybe they're back there somewhere. This one seemed a lot more action oriented. It's a kind of
very swashbuckling, right?
Sure. The system was very familiar to me, also pretty lightweight and D6 based. But I think the premise of the world is like the oceans have boiled over, but you're sailing the seas, which are not water. That part I didn't really understand. It's some sort of miasma or something like that. Or you're like floating through atmospheric layers or something in like far like year 5000, and who knows if it's even Earth. There's humans, but there's also spider colonies and then the mushroom people. So I would say that this setting was the most weird, and there was just a great bunch of players we had there. The GM was Tito M. Tito M was the GM, and he did a fantastic job as well. And basically, we were like on an ocean-going craft, Miasma Ocean. We were part of the crew, so we already had a reason to be together. We're kind of like drifting to our next mission, and the session was called the One-Armed Scissor. So we already knew that was something to do with it. It ends up that we had to track down this ship that had gone missing, and there were marauders and lots of high seas adventures. I was able to find one of my fellow spider people at the colony, at the first town that we visited. And I was able to make some social connections and build out my character. There was like ghosts and stuff like that. So lots of like crazy, wild stuff going on. And then like ran into burning people. And like one of the PCs was just this like wild chef who would do anything to get a new taste to the table or a new ingredient to the table. So they were kind of reckless, but all in all, right? Yeah, lots of laughs were had. It was a lot of fun. I did get to do some sort of Matrix style, like running off at walls and swinging webs and kick flips and stuff like that. So it was super fun.
I know Quinn's compared this to China Mayville, one of my favorite authors, and just who's like specifically within the genre of weird fiction and just really cool high concepts. And so this really has some similar vibes. Of just full of just weird ideas that are just fascinating to delve into and explore.
Right. For me, like the name of the game is like the weirder the better, because I want fantastical experiences out of RPGs, because I don't have fantastical experiences in my day-to-day life. Video games, of course, you always expect sort of fantastical things, but a lot of the times you have very grounded things or very like rote experiences in video games, because they rely on kind of genres a lot.
And even like the Dungeons and Dragons is just
Tropes.
So by the books now, like so it's very familiar. It's just been around for so long, right?
Certainly. So I intentionally looked for experiences that were not that. And Wild Sea was definitely the kookiest of the bunch. Fantastic artwork as well. I showed that one character art, but there was lots of detailed artwork, very fascinating looking creatures. I would definitely like to get my hands on that core book.
Apparently it is completely sold out thanks to Quinn's.
Well, there you go. Well, that's a happy problem for the for the publisher. They can do another run.
I'd love to check one out too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Dungeon Crawl Classics was my next one. I started that on the second day. The GM was Jack Griffiths. Another fun, wild experience. This was my first time playing DCC, but I had some knowledge of it. It's a bit of a darling right now. DCC, I think there's like a MCC, which is Mutant Crawl Classics, which is sort of wild space and bugs alternative version of DCC. Is this sort of like old school revival trend right now in tabletop RPGs? I don't really understand it because I wasn't around in the I wasn't
nostalgia, obviously.
role playing, yeah. But it's not real nostalgia because like they streamline stuff too. So it's like the vibes. It's all about vibes.
How you think it was when you
were right. Kind of like when they remaster old video games, right? It didn't look like that and it didn't play like that, but
your mind
you're just trying to recapture the vibes. Cough, cough. Final Fantasy Rebirth. So I got 3, not one, but 3 character sheets handed to me when I started this session, and you'll notice 2 of them say cause of death ... because I only ended up with 1 character of the 3
reaching run the gauntlet.
Yeah, this is a time-honored tradition apparently called the funnel, where you start with multiple, in this case 3 level 0 characters. You run them through the funnel, and whatever character ends up surviving
survival of the
has the honor of graduating to level 1. So any of you more familiar with D&D version 4 or 5th edition are probably thinking, oh my god, I thought level 1 was weak. But no, these guys are peons. Like, they're literal peasants, dock workers, or stonemasons in my case. The highest weapon damage value I had was D6 -1. The rest of them had 1d4 damage, hit points of like 5. I think my highest hit point count was 5 of my characters. So these are just like laughable numbers, right? If you're familiar with the newfangled versions of D&D. So that's the whole point. Like, it's supposed to be brutal. Right? It's supposed to be brutal. But like, it's also lighthearted in the same way, kind of like playing like a roguelike, right? Like you expect to die.
And you suddenly find a good run, like, oh, this is it. This is the build.
Yeah.
Right?
Or I hope these characters make it through, or I hope at least this character makes it through. And if one of them doesn't make it through, you shouldn't have been too attached anyway. So I would call this system like medium weird. It was weird in the sense of, I don't know, like 70s prog rock, or like 70s drug-addled posters of fantasy novels, The
meta structure was weird, but not really the actual setting, seems like.
Yeah, there were lots of familiar things, but much more sort of unhinged interpretations of it. Like, there was unicorns and giant spiders and giants and whatever. I think the mission we played was called The Hole in the Sky. But the very first thing that happened was we were drawn to this statue with a voice but unmoving lips that was holding 6 decapitated heads in its 2 arms, and it was bequeathing us, or it was imploring us to take on this mission. And of course, all of us, we're just trying to escape our miserable lives as peasants in the fields or whatever. But the first challenge was step off of this cliff. and of course we did, because whatever, we expected to die. But the first thing was we stepped off this cliff onto, of course, the invisible bridge, a la Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. But the invisible bridge we were walking down for like multiple days. It wasn't just like a bridge we crossed in an hour. No, it was multiple days, and we had entire encounters on the invisible bridge, and we had people careening off the invisible bridge. And then we had the tower with like the previous adventurers who had been implored before to go on the adventures and who had gone mad and stark raving, starving because they were left to their own devices. And then we had to climb up this kind of wild tower. And it was fun. It was brutal, but there was a lot of comedy to it. So I liked it. I think I liked it. I don't know if
Comedy
I
of
could play
errors.
that regularly, but as a change of pace, it was really nice.
Yeah, it's like a fun one-off, right? As
Yeah,
a, like a, as a, like treating it like a roguelike run.
yeah. So the next game I played was Earth Dawn, also on the second day. It was the mission was called Lip Service, and the GM was Jeffrey Sanderson. And this is the one game I'd said I'd played before in the past, so I was familiar with the world.
But a different
And
edition, you said.
that's right. This is
Okay.
like 3 editions later. So Earth Dawn 4th edition, which is the latest. I love this world. It's ostensibly based off of it shares the same universe as Shadowrun. So the concept in Shadowrun is that there's this arc of magic, and magic goes up and down over history. And in Shadowrun, the arc of magic is going up. So things were mundane without magic for a long time, and then as it curves upwards, the magic returned, and now there's elves and dwarves and dragons
back,
returning
baby.
to the land. That's right. So magic meets technology. So that's Shadowrun. Earth Dawn is the opposite of that. There was a period of high magic where like evil horrors, cosmic horrors, they're literally called horrors. So these are kind of like Cthulhu creatures, if you can imagine that, roam the earth. Humans like could not survive because they were so destructive. And then so what they did was they people knew that this was going to happen. So these wizards created these like magical fallout shelters under the earth, and all humans, dwarves, elves, whoever was who are called the name giver races, so the sentient peoples of the land, all went into these fallout shelters and lived there for thousands of years. And this is the period where the magic is waning. So magic is still high-ish, but it's on the swing down. So the cosmic horrors are starting to go away, but they're still around.
Clean up duty.
People are starting to come out of the fallout shelters, but some of those fallout shelters failed, and then the cosmic horrors got into them. So now there are these natural dungeons, which are these cities full of magical and mundane treasures that you obviously the heroes returning to the land would be smart to go delving into. So it's such a great world. It's a very weird world, but in a kind of in a very organized way. Like the lore is strong.
There are hard rules to this world.
Yeah, and the lore is strong, typical Faza fashion. They wrote entire novels about this world, and there was plenty of published campaigns about it. And this was one of the games where the GM Jeffrey, he wasn't doing the same one shot. He was doing multiple sessions. So some of the people I played with, they had played the previous sessions, so they had
nice.
They had established characters.
Some follow through. Cool.
Yeah, and we were able to jump in and play along. So I really like Earth Dawn. I really loved this reintroduction to Earth Dawn. Mechanically, I think it's still a little too fiddly for my taste. It has like D3s and D7s and stuff like that.
Those didn't feel good, you're on.
No, I agree. Yeah, I didn't like it, but whatever. I wasn't the GM, so I didn't have to deal with it. But I would like to return to that world somehow.
Thematically, it feels similar to Fallout, obviously, which we've been playing.
Right.
So,
yeah, Fallout, but even weirder. So
I mean, the vaults are always the coolest part of Fallout. So
exactly. Come on, everyone loves a dungeon. Okay, so the last game I played was Traveler. The only thing I knew about Traveler was that you could die during character creation, and that's always the joke.
Just roll a natural one.
Yeah, like you roll for your age, and then depending on your age, you roll for your HP, and you could roll 0. So you just like during character creation, just die as a senior citizen.
Have an existential crisis.
Yeah, so I think they've streamlined that in newer editions, and so it's hard sci-fi. Like it's galactic empires, multiple factions. A bunch of them are more like offshoots. So there's like multiple human races, kind of like Stargate or something. Like they've sent out humans to other parts of the galaxy, and they've created their own cultures. And there's even like kind of like werewolf people or wolf men kind of people.
Different evolutionary strings, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
because this is like, I don't
Cool.
know, I don't know the lore, but this is like, 4000 AD or something like that. So this one we kind of played it like kind of like Starship Trooper style. Like we were a crew. Like we had a commander, we had a command structure. We lost our Marines, so we were just kind of like officers or officer uh, candidates or something, and we had like a junior lieutenant as a commander or something like that. So I tried to play it up like defer to the commander, but for most things, like it started off like, oh, I got an idea. All right, we should do this and we should do that. And I was like, no, come on, guys. We have a command structure. We have to RP here. We have to pass everything through the commander. And I don't know if the player playing the commander appreciated that or not.
This is what the responsibility.
But I was trying to get into it. So we crash landed on this planet. This planet was taken over by pirates, and we had to kind of just get our butts back to safety. So long story short is we reached communications with the rest of our party, which is the Marines, but they actually didn't. We didn't. They came into the story, but we solved the mission on our own. In the end, our teammates, the space police or whatever, were like bombarding the pirates, and the pirates were escaping, and we commandeered a vehicle pretending to be pirates because, of course, we killed the pirates by rigging our shuttlecraft to explode when they went to examine it. Right. So we were just pretending to be pirates, and we even picked up some pirates along the way as we were making our way on the vehicle, like a NPC from like Aliens.
Freebooted them.
Yeah. So we managed to reach communications with our mothership and call down like an orbital bombardment onto the pirates escaping the planet. And the only thing the Marines came in handy for was as a distraction to call off the remaining pirates. So I was very proud of that maneuver that we were able to pull off. I don't think I would enjoy this game or this world if we played it straight. As in, I'm not into fascist government simulator.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to play as the dark side, as the evil empire. But it was fun to play it tongue in cheek, like Paul Verhoeven Starship Trooper style, as like a send up.
It's a fun concept to explore, but you don't want to get invested in it, right?
Yeah, but I did have a blast playing it. So the GM, apparently it was the first time. Gareth Wood is his name. The encounter was the Agern incident. It was the first time apparently he had played GM'd for a con, but he totally made it fun. Great handouts. There was a cool map. He brought like printouts of multiple stand-ups of our artwork that we could choose from, so you got to personalize it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. So what was of those 5, what was your highlight?
I think my highlight was just being able to play 5 different systems in 3 days. Like that's what I came for. Like that's what I signed up for, because I've told you I've been really into RPGs, but it's hard to get the hands-on experience. And this was my chance to get like a year's worth of different systems in one weekend.
To just try a new RPG is so much work. I mean, like if you're a GM it, especially, like you have to do like so much weeks of research just to try the game before you know if you like it, right?
Right. So in this case, we got to have people that were obviously super boosters of this game systems, sort of, and they were acting like evangelizing the games for us and really easing us into it. So they were really doing us a service.
Yeah, people who are familiar with
felt
the systems and can bring out the best of them, put them in their best light. So that's a great way to try a bunch of different ones. So put it this way, which of these would you want to play again?
Well, I already said I would definitely like to play Earth Dawn again, because I was reminded about how cool that world is and how so much you can do so much with it. So the GM Jeffrey will just scowl at me, but I have a desire to run some of that in the Cypher system, because I know the Cypher system, but I know the Earth Dawn world. So I feel like I could run it in that. But I would definitely play the other ones again. I think you have to have a little bit of investment to GM these worlds.
Yeah.
Even if the systems are easy, like if you want to GM Vaesen, because it seems you're interested,
Pretty
I'd
straightforward.
happily support you as like technical support.
Koji.
You know,
Yeah.
I'd be fine to be a rules reference guy,
Mm.
but you have to kind of like love those sorts of stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be able to tell them.
And they're obviously going to be as
yeah.
strong as the stories as they're written in the books, right?
Yeah, or else you create like
Oh, I'm not making my
a
own.
copy of like a movie you love or something like that,
Yeah.
set in a similar world.
Just bring
Dungeon
Hellboy into
like
it.
basically, I would play all of them. I would play all of them again. I think our friend wants to run Traveler, so I would totally play that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I had a blast. Great experience, and I'm definitely signing up again next year. And I was told that by the GMs who I asked that if you run if you promise to run 3 or more sessions, they'll give you a GM pass for the weekend.
You got a free ticket to the convention. Yeah, that was the deal.
Right.
Basically, because of all the research and work that goes into preparing these games, and like taking, like I said, that's 12 hours to like that you're facilitating to other people and making sure they have a good time. So yeah, we appreciate our GMs.
Right. So I think I might give it a shot. I think I
Sure.
might run a system, be it
Cypher,
Cypher
obviously,
or some of the other, like I like the tiny D6 system, which I've run previously. I did a one shot of that for Halloween, so for some neighbors, so I could do that one as well. Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, well, next year I'd like to try and schedule a bit more time. If I can schedule some time off specifically to set it, like to sign up for some events. So I know I've got that time booked out. So I'd love to check that out too, obviously. But that's a whole year away. Plenty of time, hopefully, to play some RPGs in the meantime. We've got a couple of ideas on what we might like to do, because we did do Fallout as a featured review for the podcast.
Right.
I think we want to try and do another one, maybe every 6 months or so. So we'll look into picking one soon.
Yeah, I would love to hear some feedback from any listeners, viewers, potentially, now that we're on video, of any game systems you're interested of the ones that we mentioned. There's so much I want to try out, and so much I want to play. So I'd love to hear your input.
Yeah, speaking of feedback, we'd love to hear more about this format too. I'm not sure how regularly we're going to do this. A bit of an experiment, and we're going to keep poking at this a bit in between our main episodes. And I don't think we'd expect them to be this long either. This is just because we had this topic that we weren't to encompass, and there were several other games I could have talked about too. But
yeah, and we'll try and do better with visuals as well. We'll get our own backgrounds and all that sort of stuff in there. But this is just an experiment, so we're seeing how it goes.
Absolutely.
Cool. Do you want to talk about any other games that you played or any other experiences that you had?
I think I'll leave it there. Just in the interest of time, I did take part in the used marketplace. Where we facilitate people being able to sell their games. And I've previously picked up a few good deals there, but this is the first year I actually sold more games than I brought home with me. So I'm proud of myself for that. Did make a bit of money back finally. And the one game I did pick up in true Omnigame fashion is, let me get this right way up, the Binding of Isaac board game. The Binding of Isaac 4 Souls. So I'm a big fan of, we spoke of roguelikes. That's probably my favorite roguelike. I've put several hundred hours into that game. And so very curious to see how that translates into tabletop.
Right. And I also partook in the used game sale.
Yes,
but
I saw above your...
over there. I have it over here, but I got off. I was the one who ended up buying this entire stack of Star Wars Destiny cards plus dice game, a collectible card game, because I was always interested in this game.
So sometimes you see a deal that's just too good not to buy, right?
Right. And like I have no problem with like dead collectible games.
You don't have to feel the pressure of spending more money on it.
Yeah, I can't be bothered doing the chase, right? I just want to play the game. And so I got that. I got a set of Dice Masters, which is, excuse the tape, but I got this whack of Dice Master dice and cards. I got some neoprene player boards, and I got ironically I got another Star Wars game, which was a
the deck
discounted
building one.
sealed copy of the Star Wars deck building game.
Not the new Star Wars collectible card game that's just come out.
That's right. Not that one. The previous to that, not too old deck
Star Wars
building
fans are eating.
It's true. And, you know, I just couldn't pass up a deal. So I was very pleased.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm curious to try it. I've still got my Quarriors around here somewhere, like the original game.
Yeah.
The Dice
Masters is Quarriors, as I understand it. Right. So let's talk about that more as well. I'll talk about a few other pieces of merch that I got maybe in our next episode. But I enjoyed this format and talking to you on video.
Absolutely. If anyone has any suggestions of other special topics you'd like us to discuss, maybe we'll try some live streams at some point. In the meantime, next episode of the regular podcast coming up shortly. We are looking at Pacific Drive, the new video game from Ironwood Studios. Not going to spoil anything. I'm still plugging away at that game. It's a little longer than I thought, but having a pretty good time, shall we say.
Yeah, all I will say about Pacific Drive is that starting tomorrow, I'm heading to Washington State to the Olympic. That's right, the Olympic Peninsula, to take a literal Pacific Drive. And if I don't return, then that is why I got caught by the exclusion zone.
Mm-hmm. Reporting from location. Excellent.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too real.
Put your limb shields on your car. Okay, well, let us know if you have any questions or comments, and feel free to join the club at omnigamersclub@gmail.com. Also on Twitter and Instagram. No, we don't have a dedicated account, but we have our own accounts on Instagram, Blue Sky, and around.
That's right. And visit our website at omnigamers.club to subscribe to the podcast.
Well, thanks for listening / watching. I don't know what that could be either now.
That's right. If you were just listening, you didn't miss much. We'll work on the visuals for next time.
Yeah.
But until next time, I guess, have a balanced diet of gaming.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching.